You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
I am the Senate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Galactic Senate Sitdowns here on the For the Republic podcast feed. I am one of your hosts, Starlight Andrew, and I am here to introduce our first guest. We were supposed to do this last month. Things got delayed. Some guests got switched around, but don't worry, we still have a lot of exciting episodes ready for you. But we got a fun one today. With me today is quite possibly the reason why this podcast exists, because of his site and his community. We all ended up joining together. I know him by a couple things. You may know him as Star Wars editor SWE Austin. You may also know him as that chubby guy on TikTok. He once was known as. Austin, how are you? It is
I'm
so
doing
good to have
great.
you as our first episode.
Yes, man. What an intro. Yeah, that commenter that said that, man. He's all good. I'm glad I live up to the name. I'm glad I can recognized.
I mean, it's kind of fitting that you're the first person we have on here because you did the art for both this and the main show. And then SWE is the reason that me, Jake, Connor, and Don all kind of came together. And I asked those lovely gentlemen if they wanted to start a podcast. And
yes,
almost 9 months later, here we are ready to go. So what I want to do with this show is it's going to basically be, as the title says, a sit-down interview show, but it's not just going to be your standard, oh, what's your favorite Star Wars movie, stuff like that. I just want to talk to people in the community, and I want to get their stories, basically, their fandom journeys. That's the two things that I wanted to set out when I started this podcast were start a love letter to Star Wars animation, which I feel like we've done. And then the other thing is the personal connections to the franchise, which I always feel like there can be more of that, you know? So with this, I wanted to do those full in-depth breakdowns because whenever I have a new person on the show, and I've been lucky enough to have quite a few amazing guests so far, I like to ask them, the first question I always ask is, what was your first Star Wars memory or what got you into Star Wars? So this show is basically going to be expanding on all that, and I'll ask a couple questions as we go on. So to start off, how long have you been like a fan of Star Wars? Like, is it like one of those things where as early as you can remember, you've always been a fan of the franchise, or is it like a more recent thing? Is it something that happened later in life? Tell me about that.
So I'd say when I was about like 5 years old, I saw the original trilogy. My dad showed me the first three movies. That's like basically all I knew. Like by that time, the prequels are already out, but he didn't like the prequels, so he didn't show me the prequels, and I didn't know about them. So I really only knew the original three, and it was like that for a while. So like when I was 5 years old, I really liked it. I kind of like grew out of it a bit, and like I remember seeing Clone Wars. And again, I hadn't seen the prequel trilogy. I didn't know it existed. And so I thought that like Anakin was Luke. I really didn't know who Obi-Wan was, but they were like adding in these characters to like Luke Skywalker's story, you know? I was young, I didn't understand. Like, like I was just like, oh, this is cool animation. But then like I'd say when I like could really call myself like a Star Wars fan, big Star Wars fan, was when Force Awakens came out, the hype for that movie, and seeing it in theaters, I think it rejuvenated a lot of people's love for Star Wars. I'm one of those people. It just, you know,
it definitely brought me back mine. Like the lead into the Force Awakens, like that year going into the Force Awakens, it just became my entire life. So it went from like, I've always been massive into Star Wars, but that like really, really hooked me back into it was the lead into the Force Awakens, and it's been that way ever since, and now it's just my entire life. But I remember, like, that's funny that you say that, because I remember you telling a similar story on the first episode of Wayseekers, which is one of Austin's podcasts. We can talk about those later on. And I remember you telling that story because the one thing I love about this question is everyone's story is different. And that's why I'm really excited for this show, is because you're not just, you might start with the same movie, or you might have become fans at a similar time. I know a lot of the people in your Discord are of the age where when the prequels came out, that's when they first started getting into Star Wars. And that's really what I guess not like it's the new majority, I would say, is the prequel kids. Now, when I started getting into the online community, it was still like heavy duty original trilogy. I went through all the prequel hate, and now it's the sequel hate, and everything repeats. But now it really feels like the prequel kids are front and center, and they're getting to tell their stories, and they're getting to share their experiences, to where it's not just the people that grew up in the 70s and 80s anymore having the big majority of the opinions or having their word out there in the community. Now a lot of the big TikTok creators are our age, or people around our age, or people on Instagram or Twitter. So it's like the tides are changing, and it's really nice to see that because, at least for me, I've loved the prequels my whole life. I went through those phases of, I can't say I like the prequels because I'll get killed. But then I always still was like, no, I mean, they're pretty good. Like, even like it's like, yeah, Attack of the Clones, like it's got some problems, but I like it. But now I'm just like, okay, no, these movies are awesome, and I'm so glad that like I still can. But now I really just don't care. Now I'm just like, yeah, I like the movies. Like, I don't care what you think. Like, I like a movie. Like, why does it matter what your opinion is? If like that's never really bothered me, and now even more than so, I just am 100% up for my embracing of every aspect of Star Wars. But I found that really funny that you watched it and you didn't know who most of the characters were. So you probably watched the original trilogy, and then you turned on Clone Wars and you're like, Ahsoka, like I don't remember that character in those movies. Like who is this?
Yeah,
so,
well, that was like, it was on cable, so it was like, this was random episodes too. Like, you'd get like a season 4 episode, and the next episode was from season 2. And it's like, what is going on here? I mean, I feel like they did try to play like the arcs together, but there was some times where it was like, what is going on here? Like, but I think I like the Padme episodes a lot because I thought that was Leia, and so I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Like, that's Princess Leia up there. And
then you're like, wait a minute, hold on, why are Luke and Leia this close? Right. I thought they were brother and sister. Was that before Jedi? Like all the questions, like where's Han? And that must have been real interesting. So when actually was the first time you watched the prequels? Do you even have a memory of that?
Yeah, so I found out through Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga that there was 3 other movies, and I'm like, what is this? So I watched them all. I believe like probably that year leading up to The Force Awakens, maybe like 2 years leading up to it. I watched those movies, and I was like, these are really good, because I think I like heard about them and I didn't watch them for a while, but I remember seeing like on social media, like, oh, these movies are bad, that type of thing. So I remember watching them and being like, what are people talking about? Like, I mean, I was younger, but it was still like, damn, like I thought those movies were good. So yeah, it's wild how much the prequel perception has changed.
Did you have the talk with your dad? Like, Dad, wait, what do you mean there's 3 other Star Wars movies? What is this?
Yeah. He was, because he had told me, and he was like, yeah, because those movies are 4, 5, and 6, and there's 3 other movies. And he was like, I didn't really get into them. I didn't really watch them. So I was like, damn.
It's like, whoops, sorry.
Yeah.
And then the floodgates opened. So your first thing, if I recall, was Instagram. Like, that's where you first had your big following. When did that start? And was that before you watched the prequels for the first time, or was that after?
No.
And like, what was the early origins of Star Wars Editor, how that came to be?
Right. So originally, Star Wars Editor was this account that I made just before Rogue One, like a year before. And originally, I really was like a Star Wars editor. I mean, I do make like graphic design posts and stuff like that. So I guess you could still call me Star Wars editor, maybe Star Wars graphic designer. I don't know. It's too late to change the name now. We're too far in. But originally, I was part of this fan film. can't even remember what it was called at this point. It was something basic like Shadows of the Darkness. It just doesn't happen. Like it was one of those fan films that it just didn't happen.
Oh, I've been there.
Right. And I was supposed to be like editing on it and such, and so I made the Instagram because originally I had followed a few pages like Star Wars jokes, I think was one of them, and there was this other one, his name was like the Star Wars historian, and he would write like fan fiction, and he was talking about he was working on this movie type thing. I was like, I want to be involved in that. I could be an editor. And he was like, why don't you post some of this stuff on Instagram? So I did. But yeah, that was November of 2016, just before Rogue One. So yeah, Rogue One was coming out. It was a different time back then. But I've met a lot of great people because of Rogue One. But I came in like after the Force Awakens hype. I think like Rebels was coming on to season 3 at that point. So I came in late in the game. It's weird to say now because now when I go on Instagram, I'm like the elder on there. Like it's like there's like a few other people that have stuck around that were like that came before me, but now it's like the newer generation. It's just like Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, I've been around for a bit. I didn't start doing this podcast until earlier this year, but I've had several failed attempts before that I do not want to get into. That's funny that you brought up the fan film, though, because I feel like everyone's been there. One of the things I want to do, like when we reach a certain milestone, is I want to just, because I still have like my spec scripts of this fan film I was trying to write my senior year of high school. And I just want to go through it because it is such crap. And like, but I thought I was like genius. I'm like, oh, we'll do this found footage type stormtrooper type of movie. And like 17-year-old me was like, yeah, that'll be awesome. But how was I going to film it? Like, where was I going to make, like, it would have been god awful. But
yeah,
I mean, Rogue One is an interesting journey point, or entry point, I should say, into the content creator community, because obviously now we know a lot of people that love Rogue One. And don't get me started on the fact that I couldn't see it because they didn't re-release it this past weekend near me. I was so pissed. Of course, they got showtimes for No Way Home like 3 weeks in advance, but Rogue One, nope, we're just not going to release it. I'm like,
I don't know why they put it in IMAX, because like I'm in the middle of, I'm visiting my mom in Ohio right now, in the middle of like nowhere, and there's not like an IMAX within like 100 miles, and I'm like, man, but there's like 10 movie theaters, but not one of them have an IMAX.
I have 2 IMAX theaters within 10 miles from me, and they didn't.
And they didn't show it. Oh,
they didn't even show it.
No.
I was so pissed. It was like, it was a stab to the heart right here. And I'm not even like the biggest Rogue One fan in the world, but I'm so hyped for Andor, and I just want to see a Star Wars movie in theaters again. So I guess that can segue into my next question. Was The Force Awakens your first Star Wars movie in the theater, or was that Rogue One, or was that something earlier?
It was Force Awakens. I feel like I actually did see Revenge of the Sith in theaters, now that I think about it. But yeah, I did see Revenge of the Sith in theaters. But again, like I still didn't know there was like the first 2 movies. I just didn't really think about it. I guess in my head when I was little, it was like, I don't know, a spin-off movie.
You're like, what is this?
It's the Darth Vader origin story. But
episode 3, it's like, oh, that's weird that they start at 3, and then
yeah. But of course I didn't know Roman numerals back then, so I was like, episode I, let's go. But it was Force Awakens was my first Star Wars movie that I saw in theaters. I saw it late as fuck too. Like, I'm sorry, can I cuss out here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
I got Jake on the show. Like, I'm used to this shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But I saw it super late. I saw it like January 5th or something. It came out like December 16th or 17th.
Yeah, opening night for me. So
yeah,
I don't know how you survived the spoiler hell.
Well, no, because I mean, like, Han Solo dies, like that was a meme, so I knew that. But I guess I just like obviously I cared because like leading up to, I was super excited, but not as much as like right now. I could never do that in my life. Like I can't even do that for like the Marvel movies, and I'm not as invested in that as I was like Star Wars at that point. So I don't know how I don't know how I did that.
Yeah. I worked at a movie theater during the first 4 Disney Star Wars movies.
Oh, bless
so
your
like
soul.
I had to be like frantically dodging spoilers. Like, oh, you got to clean the theater. I'd be waiting until the very last person like left the theater to go in there. Like, if I had to clean a bathroom, I would be like putting headphones in so I didn't hear people being like, "Oh yeah, that Luke just died," and then just ruined my life.
Oh my god!
But I was like, those opening nights were always hell if I wasn't able to get a showtime already. But yeah, mine was. I mean, I'm not gonna make this about myself, but like mine was either Revenge of the Sith or Clone Wars, the Clone Wars movie for my first experience. But I don't remember seeing 3 in theaters. So Force Awakens was really my first true Star Wars theater experience. So I'm right there with you. There's just something about that era, man. Like the lead up and then the like the late 2014 to like mid 2017 is like I look back so fondly on that era, which is weird because a lot of the content creators I liked back then, I do not like them anymore. But like that era where like people still loved Force Awakens and they really liked Rogue One, and then it just felt like such a special time. And I feel like we're getting close to that again. We don't have any films right now, but like Kenobi, Andor, Bad Batch, we're getting a bunch of great stuff. So I feel like we're starting to reach that point again. Then High Republic, obviously.
Right.
So we talked about that. We talked about your first time in the theater. So do you have like a favorite like early memory with Star Wars, like when you were a kid, when you first discovered it? If you have any stories you want to share, go ahead.
I remember like back then when I was 5, like I think like Party City was big back then, not even just for like Halloween costumes all year round. And I remember my dad, he was a smaller guy. He got me a Darth Vader costume. And mind you, I was 5 years old, so I was small, right? And to surprise me with the costume, he put it on. He put on the costume. Like he fit into it. Not well, but he did fit into it. And he came out as Darth Vader. He had the blue lightsaber too. And I was like, wrong. But like I remember that like the costumes, because I think I got like a stormtrooper costume after that, and I really had like I had all the Imperials. I didn't have any of the good guys, but I had 100 of those plastic lightsabers, the build your own one where you could make the double bladed or whatever you want. It came with like discs to change the light color. It was I had a lot of Star Wars stuff, which
I had
like none of
the good ones over there. My funny story with the lightsabers is I had Vader's because I was Vader for Halloween one year. So that's another thing we have in common. But I got it taken away from me because I was hitting all my siblings with the damn lightsaber in the head. So I wasn't allowed to buy any more lightsabers anymore.
Damn.
It was just something with me and sword toys as a kid. My parents were just,
me too.
No. So then later in life, I got some of the shit ones. And then now I have a crippling collecting edition, which is just bad. So, I mean, I guess we can segue into that. Have you ever, like, I see you got a couple posters and you got a bunch of stuff there. The collecting side of things, has that ever been something that's intrigued you, or has that just not been on your radar?
Yeah, so ever since The Force Awakens, I've been collecting, which is funny because this is all stuff, because like I said, I'm in Ohio. I live in Vegas. This is all stuff I have at my mom's. It's not much, but I have like a few books. I got a lot of stuff while I was here. But at home, I have like a whole wall with a couple bookcases, lots of posters. But I used to be really big into the Funko Pop collecting. Yep. I remember because, like I said, Rogue One came out. I didn't know about like the Funko Pops with The Force Awakens, but there was I think it was called like Go Rogue Day or something like that. They didn't call it Force Friday, but they had all those Go Rogue, or they had Force Fridays, and then they had like Go Rogue and something for Solo. But I remember that Rogue One, they had like on the StarWars.com like a whole list of where you could get exclusive stuff. I got all these Funko Pops. Baze Malbus was my first ever Funko Pop. That was before the movie came out, and I fell in love with Baze Malbus before the movie even came out. That's my guy. It was the first ever Funko Pop I owned. I remember like when the picture of Baze Malbus came out, I was like, that's my guy. I had that moment with a lot of the Star Wars movies. That's why I like Dryden Voss a lot.
Dryden is so cool.
Yeah, from the Star Wars trailers.
Yeah.
But I had like all the Funko Pops, and then I kind of fell off of it because I had to sell a few. Sucks, like, because I saw the expensive ones, and of course all the expensive ones are like the prequel ones. So I had all those Funko Pops, the prequel ones, the Rebels ones. I sold off so many of them. I still have a lot. I'd say I have over 100, but now there's over like 500 Star Wars Pops. And I'm like, damn, like I used to have all of them, and now I'm like 400 behind.
Yeah, I waned off of them. I have hundreds, but I kind of cut down on it because I just have literal boxes of Funkos that I can't like display or anything. So now it's mainly just Lego and Black Series for me. But like every now and then, like I got a bunch of the Kenobi ones. They have that like Women of the Galaxy series that they've done. So I got the Leia, the Padme, the Sabine. I have them all pre-ordered. But now it's more of just a special occasion thing. But no, I was real big. Like Force Awakens, I kind of had a similar thing with you. Instead of with Rogue One, I mean, I got a bunch of the Rogue One ones, but it was with Force Awakens when they had that first Force Friday. I remember like getting like Phasma, Rey, Finn, Poe, BB-8, Kylo, all before the movie even came out. Like I was like, I might not like these characters at all, but I need to get some of these. And then it turned into a full-on Rey Funko collection, which I still have. Like I said, I just showed the Empress Palpatine one that I have right here, but I have all of them. I think I literally have every Rey Funko they've ever made, except for maybe one.
I think I do too. I recently got this one, the Ronin Funko.
Oh, I want that so bad. I want that so. That's one of the few where I'm like, okay, I gotta get. Like Jake and I have been half joking, half 100% serious that we're gonna start like a collector's like once a month type of show. And that's just going to be brutal. They're going to be like 4 hours long every single time.
Nowadays, I just collect like the books, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
like
big on the
there's a few
books,
things
too.
I get, but I get every book now. I'm trying to get all the other ones, but some of them like they just go discontinued. It's just done with, and I'm like, well, all right, maybe when I'm have $40 to drop on a single book, I will. But
I lucked out big the other day because I was thrifting and I got literally like 9 or 10 Legends books, and I don't have many Legends. So I was like, let me get a bunch of these. So I have like half the X-Wing series now. It's pretty dope. But I guess we can transition now into, we've talked about the films, and we can get back to the films and your enjoyment. And we obviously talked about Clone Wars, but and your like not really understanding what the hell is going on while watching Clone Wars. But when we talk about the other side of Star Wars, the TV shows, the books, the comics, when did that start for you? And how did that transition into your creation, your Instagram, your website? How did that side of Star Wars impact your fandom? And what led to you becoming or discovering that side of the world, the Star Wars world?
I honestly can't remember. I mean, like I remember back in the day in the library at like school and stuff, they had all these Star Wars books. It was the Legends ones, but they had all these different Star Wars books. So I like always knew about them. I think because I realized recently, or I found out recently, that it's a common misconception that Star Wars is based off of a book. Like it's like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings based off of a book. And I feel like I was one of those people. So I was like, oh, I never got into the books of Star Wars. But
I've met a couple people that are like, yeah, I don't think this one's based off one of the books. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah, there's
movies came out first.
People like that all the time in my comments, especially when I post the reels, because they've been doing better. And I just get all these people in my comments that are just like saying stuff like that. I'm like, what are you talking about? But I honestly can't remember. I feel like one of my first books that I got was I know it was like Rebel Rising. Might have been the first, which was just after Rogue One, because I remember reading that like a summer camp.
I finally got it because Emily has made 600 TikToks about it, so I finally was like, got to get this book.
It's a great book. It's Yeah, I love Rebel Rising. I think but I had the Ahsoka book, and if you follow me on places, you may know that I don't really, I don't really like the Ahsoka book, but I had the Ahsoka book, Rebel Rising. I think that's when I really got into it, and then just before the Last Jedi came out, Leia, Princess of Alderaan came out. That's when I was deep into it, and I was like, oh my god, I'm making like Star Wars facts about this expanded content because nobody's reading this, and it's fantastic stuff. Because I remember at the time when I was reading Princess of Alderaan, Solo was like 6 months away because it just like Princess of Alderaan came out just before the Last Jedi. It was meant to introduce Holdo, and there was the part where Leia has this boyfriend. His name is Kier. And I thought it was interesting because at the time it wasn't confirmed yet, but Han Solo, the Solo movie, obviously had a character named Kira. That was kind of like the speculation that was his love interest. So I remember one of my first my first facts on Instagram was like, before they met each other, Leia had a significant other named Kier, and Han had a significant other named Kira. I don't even know if that was intentional. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I posted it as a fact. I was like, they both were with somebody that sounds like Kira. So,
I mean, if any of us ever get Claudia Gray to guest on something, we'll have to ask that question. Was that intentional that you did Prince of Alderaan?
I've tagged her in like so many tweets over the years.
It is. So. Everyone says it's one of the best. I have yet to read it. I need to because Claudia is my favorite Star Wars author, and I mean I love Leia. And then you talk about Solo, and I am one of the biggest Solo fans out there. So I need to get more into that. But I guess you kind of touched on it. So you started as a fact account on Instagram, and then that kind of blossomed into everything. Mm-hmm. So that was with Rogue One, or was that Princess of Alderaan, or like what started that, and then how long did that last, and then where did that kind of transition into what's current?
So things got like 2016, 2017, because originally I was posting edits and such of like just like intros or that sort of stuff. So I was posting that sort of stuff, and I met All Star Wars, aka Mike at that time, one of my best friends now. He's on Instagram, probably know him. And he was my gateway into like posting content. But he had started what was called the All Star Wars Network, which was a bunch of people that were making YouTube videos, and there was like a gaming department where those people were doing like gaming live streams on YouTube. There's the editing department, which I was the head of. There was other types of YouTube videos, like editorial type videos. So I was doing that sort of stuff, and I didn't really post anything on my Instagram besides like promo for that sort of stuff. And things sort of fell apart because, we're a bunch of kids just, trying to do a lot. Thank God, because like nowadays I do stuff like that, and it's like,
Yeah, how old were you at the time when, if you don't mind me asking, when
I think it was like 15 or 16, 14, 15, 16, can't remember. Yeah, it was I was young. We were all young. And it was things sort of fell apart. No drama there. I mean, I'm still friends with a lot of those people. Obviously, Mike's still one of my best friends. He gets to work on my stuff with me now. So it all worked out in the end. But, I didn't post stuff on there, and then like Solo came out, and I was like, well, maybe I should do my own page again, focus on Star Wars editor instead of putting a ton of energy towards all Star Wars. And so the All Star Wars Network kind of became like an unofficial thing. Like we come on for podcast episodes here and there, but it wasn't really a thing. So then I started doing my own stuff, started making my own fact page. Originally I started on my phone. That's when I really fell in love with graphic design, was that summer, like when Solo came out. I started making graphic design posts, started making all my posts in Photoshop. Whereas like at the time, Instagram was like, it was all the same shit. Everybody was posting facts, but it was all the same facts, and everything looked the same. It was a picture with a black rectangle, and you had text over it. That was it. There was no color. there was no design. That was it. Everybody's shit looked the exact same. It was either that or memes. So I was like, well, let me do something different. I want to do facts because I feel like I have facts that were different from what everybody else was posting. Because at the time it was like, did you know that Darth Vader originally said Obi-Wan killed your father? And it's like, okay, everybody's heard that by now. But I was posting like more niche facts for like different things like in the books and such, or the comics, which I feel like a lot more people read now, or there's at least a bigger community of it because of TikTok and Twitter and such. But at the time, it was like you're really informing like the Star Wars fan base, the majority of them who didn't read. You were their reader basically, and so I wanted to make posts that were easy to read, and also that like felt like you can take 5 minutes out of your day, look at this nice, and it's not just a fact. So I would put things like the next slide would be like a Galaxy of Adventures episode that related to that, or music spotlight, or a scene from one of the movies that relates to the fact, that sort of stuff, or like a game, something interactive. I just wanted to make interactive content, and I had a lot of fun doing it. There's like some downsides to that sort of stuff because like obviously I don't really do stuff like that anymore. I mean, in some ways I've moved on to bigger things, and then I've also stepped down a bit on like Instagram, just posting like Star Wars actor interviews and such now. But I still do, you know, graphic design with other stuff like my website SWE Fiction. So yeah, it's been a long journey. But yeah, Instagram got a little different, but I would say like I feel like maybe I put more color into Instagram, you know, or because after that a lot of people started to follow suit doing their own graphic design stuff.
The stuff looks a lot better now than it did back in the day. So I guess you're somewhat to thank for that because you got a pretty big Instagram following. And then how did that translate to the site, and then you eventually brought in a couple people, and then it all spiraled into it, and I ended up being one of those people in this summer of 2020. So what gave you the idea to make a site, and then you had all these articles, and then you brought these people in, and then that eventually turned into the SWEF, which we can get to in a bit. So like, was that just a random off the cusp thing, or was that kind of in the works for a while?
I mean, it was definitely thought up for a while, and it was kind of like it was the culmination of like all the stuff that had come before. I feel like SWE, like I really don't feel like I'm Star Wars editor. I always feel like Star Wars editor is like a community, the community I've created, or SWE, because it feels weird to be like I'm a part of Star Wars editor. But I really always felt like it was a community, and at the time I was like doing a lot of stuff with because I started writing articles on my own. I had my own like WordPress website. I would like interview cosplayers and such, and I was friends with a lot of creators, and I was like, this was like a community. I was friends with a lot of my followers because the following wasn't as big now, so I felt like I could have more of a personal connection with followers. So it was a community, and I was like, let's make a website, you know, like we'll have people, because people have always wanted to contribute somehow to SWE, and it was just the one Instagram page. So it's like, how can you contribute to the community like that? So we made the website. The plan was to have articles, games, and just like general stuff for SWE. You can make your own SWE account, that sort of stuff. And we still do articles now and then. I mean, it's not really my main focus. I'm sure someday soon I will start revamping that, maybe get some more writers and such to write articles. But then the website just kind of became like the home of everything, and we could really do whatever we want because we have this website. We don't have the, you know, restrictions of like a social media site where you can only post 200 character tweets or things like that. So then it was like, we could make something out of this. Also, at the time, I was working on Blood of Vader, which is an animated series that Tom and I we're still working on it. It just takes way longer than we thought. We prematurely announced that project, and we paid the price because it's taken a while.
I feel like I've been hearing about Blood of Vader since I've known you. So
Yeah,
like
probably
it's gonna be good when it comes out. It's just like when is that gonna happen?
Yeah, because we don't want to release a faulty product, so we've been working really good at it.
I know full well what it's like to announce something and for it to not come out until like way down the line. This
Right.
I was like, coming July. It's almost September, and I'm just recording the first episode. But life happens and it hits you in the face. So
we got hit with like COVID and everything too. So it was weird because we had a bunch of time at first. Like it was like we got so much done in those like first 3 months, and then it was like, oh my god, now everybody's broke because we haven't been working. Everybody's got to go back to work. College is starting out for the animator and such. So things got super complicated.
Yeah,
but
I was gonna ask, were you the one doing the animation, or did you bring someone in to do it yourself? I mean, do it for you.
Yeah, I mean, so like a lot of the content, it's all like a collaborative effort. But yeah, so it's like Alex was the animator, and then Tom wrote the series. I had a lot of the ideas, but I wasn't confident in my own writing back then because, like I said, I always have like, maybe it's a toxic trait, maybe it's not, but I always have this like perfectionist mindset where I'm like, everything's gotta look nice and be perfect, which isn't always possible. But it was a team effort and we all worked closely together, but Alex was the main animator. There's a few other artists though, but yeah, I mean, like, we've quickly realized that like one person animating something, that's not realistic. That's not a thing.
Yeah,
so
no.
that's some of the challenges that we've had to face and overcome, and obviously money's an issue, but that's where like SWE fiction came into place because Blood of Vader, it had like it's 5 episodes and they're 10 minutes each, but there's some things that we wanted to tell otherwise. Like the first episode is all about how Kylo got the helmet, Darth Vader's helmet, and it takes place on Endor. So it's like, well, we could tell a story about Darth Vader's pyre on Endor, which became Skywalker Legacy of Endor, the first story I've ever written by myself. And it basically just sparked off with like Kylo Ren stories. And then we had a lot of the writers from the website, because everybody started off as writing like articles, like Megan, Jake, Connor, Jacob, Tom, all of them started as article writers. And then it was kind of like, we're doing this project based off of Blood of Vader, where we want to have short stories, comics, all sorts of things, a connected universe of fan fiction. So that's what we've done. And
and
lots
it's
of different
turned into
ideas.
its own thing. So now you have, I think you announced like 10 or so like stories going on right now, and you have the ongoing project you have right now. So tell me what it's, without spoiling anything, tell me what it's like to run or be like the showrunner, if you will, of an entire like storytelling universe, like where you have to kind of stay within the canon stuff, but also like tell your own stories. And before that, I just got to ask, has there been a situation where you've been working on a story and then something has come out or been announced that contradicts something you're working on, so you have to kind of rewrite it?
Yeah. So we're working, recently happened because we're working on this sequel trilogy project called Dawn of the Order. There's 10 short stories. It's 8 short stories, 2 novels, and they all take place in the Rise of the First Order, and kind of tell the story of the Rise of the First Order, Kylo Ren. The idea is like, if you know, like the Marvel Legends series figures, where there's this line of figures and each one comes with like an arm or a leg or a head. And if you collect the whole line, you put all those pieces together, you have an extra figure. So instead of 10 figures, you actually have 11 figures. That's basically what that initiative is. It's 10 stories, but by the end of it, there'll really have been 11 stories. And it's not because we're adding in some random thing at the end. It's because they all connect in that way, where there's like a whole story throughout all of them that still connects to each individual story that also still stands on their own. But anyways, one of my stories, or the first story I'm writing, it's called Skywalker Lost Legends. It's the third story in my Skywalker trilogy, because I did Skywalker Legacy of Endor, Skywalker The Same Noriel, and now I'm doing Skywalker Lost Legends. And it's all about Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy and the destruction of it. And Shadow of the Sith came out while I'm writing it.
Ooh.
And one of the things is like Luke Skywalker doesn't allow attachments in his Jedi Order. And it was like, I never thought of Luke that way. So it was like, I'm writing him as this character where he's like allowing the relationships, and now I gotta change it up where.
Yeah, Book of Boba Fett and Shadow of the Sith, which I haven't gotten to yet, but that kind of like changed my perception of Luke a little bit, because I thought he would be more like lax with his teaching, because that's kind of what led to the downfall of the Order in the first place. But he's still like kind of super hands-on with Grogu, which I think that's what, when we eventually do get stories of Rey's Jedi Order, that's what that will end up being.
Right.
Because if they do again, like whenever we get a continuation, it's like, oh yeah, it got destroyed again. I'll be like, all right, come on now. Like we can tell other stories. Get a like flourishing Jedi Order here. I know Connor is just like sweating bullets every time they announce a new like Jedi Survivor tie-in, because he's got the Cal story coming.
Yeah, a few of them.
Yeah, so I've been hearing about that. But so what, like, to organize this all and to come up with these new stories, and do you have it to where like people will come in and pitch you stuff, or do you pitch certain stories to certain people? Like how do you like go across running the whole SWEF world? It's
a little bit of both, back and forth. I'd say a lot of people, like the story group, all their stuff, like big thing is like the High Republic stuff made by Tom, or like Jake's Danger Squad, or Megan's Labara stories. They all pitch that stuff to me. But because it's a connected universe, it's always like there's room for more stories, or, you know, things that need to happen in other stories that can make other stories work. So my job is to also make sure that if that's the case, to get a writer to come on for that story. Or it's a little different now, because when we first started, it was like, we're just going to do a bunch of random things. We're going to tell stories. Tom's going to tell a High Republic trilogy. I'm going to tell a Luke Skywalker trilogy. And everything else is going to be kind of random. We had Donovan, who's also on your show. He wrote Scars of War.
Great story.
Yes, a fantastic story, and it's disconnected from everything else in SW fiction so far. But we kind of started off with a bunch of standalone stories like Price of Justice, A Legend of Labara, things like that. And so, yeah, people will pitch stuff to me in the story group, but we don't really have like public pitches. It's more just like, it's kind of right now, it's like invite only. People may show interest, and if they have a good idea, then we'll do it. But it's kind of different now, because they're kind of focusing more on these initiatives like Dawn of the Order. We have 2 other big ones in the works right now that will come out next year in 2023. We have our whole schedule filled out till January 2024. So we know everything that's happening.
1 or 2 drop in the past month, if I believe.
Yeah, so we have our Starboard initiative coming out right now, which is 5 short stories all about Star Wars Rebels characters. So we've had 3 come out, and we have 2 more coming out in the next 2 weeks. But yeah, we're focusing more on these initiatives. So with that, it's more like for Dawn of the Order, because I could talk about that one because we've announced that one and talked about it on our announcement day. With that one, the stories were all separate Kylo Ren stories that we were all working on. Like Connor B wasn't even part of SWE fiction yet, but he had this idea of this Kylo Ren story, and we were like, hold up, that works over here. And then Megan had a Kylo Ren story. I had Skywalker Lost Legends. So we kind of just realized we can merge all these stories together. So with that, we only needed to ask for 2 other stories, which we just asked Connor to do a Jedi Fallen Order story in that initiative to get the connections there with Ilum and Starkiller Base. And then the second story is Josh's story, aka New Horizons, which is about Kylo Ren on Ilum and Starkiller Base. So those are the only 2 stories that we had to add into the initiative. But for the others, the director will have an idea. The director of those initiatives, the director will have an idea of what those stories need to be. But there's a lot of creative freedom. In the one that's directed by Jake, can't talk about it yet, but he has allowed a lot of creative freedom for his writers, but at the same time there is like an overall endpoint for the last book of that initiative. And then Tom's working on an initiative as well, and that one's a little different because it's based off of other SWE fiction books, so the creativity is less, or like it's not as much as like Jake's initiative, because there's things to fall in line. But
yeah, so I honestly thought that you were like the director of everything, so I didn't even know that like Jake had his own sect of it. And then
so I still technically am the director of everything, but right now, like with these initiatives, what I think is really cool is that we're able to have other people like Jake and Tom come on and direct these initiatives. I still oversee everything, and these people are all super talented, so very rarely do I but very rarely do I say no, it's not gonna work, but it does happen. And yeah, overall I oversee all of it. It's kind of like Kevin Feige, and kind of have it set up in the Marvel way, where it's like I'm the producer of everything, I oversee everything, but you still have Joe and Anthony Russo coming in to direct a movie, so that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I'm lucky enough to work with 3 of the people in the story group on almost a daily basis, so I know how talented everyone in there is, and every time a new thing is announced, I'm looking forward to all the hype surrounding it, and then eventually getting to read all the stories. I don't know if you're technically allowed to say this, but if you could pick like a favorite of a story to work on, or a story that you were just really happy with how it turned out, do you have one, or are you one of those I can't choose, I love them all?
Obviously I do love them all. They're all fantastic stories, and they all add so much to the universe in one way or another. I'd say some of my favorite ones to work on, though, and I think I could say this because like a lot of the story group members agree, because we all get to work on all these stories, so it's very much a team effort no matter what. If somebody wins, we all win type of thing. I think Resistance Consequences, written by Mike, all Star Wars, was a big one. Big for the community. A lot of people in the SWE community love that story.
Saw a lot of hype for that one on the Discord.
Yeah. Mike had put people's names from the Discord and Star Warsified them and put them into that book. It was a really great story. It really felt, that's when it like really hit me that I was like, I'm producing these stories. Like I'm like in charge here, because
you're like, this isn't just like a fan thing. This is like, it's becoming its own little
like
thing.
People are excited for these stories. So yeah, that was like kind of when it was like, damn, this like this reached outside our target audience. But it was really cool because it really felt like I was producing something, because the original idea of that book was to be a rebellion leader that left the rebellion, and why would they leave the rebellion? But obviously with SWE fiction, we have our end goal in mind, which takes place after the rise of Skywalker, and right now we're kind of leading up to that. So right now we're in the stages of putting our pre-Rise of Skywalker and like our sequel era stories putting our stuff into the sequel era so that by the time we get to post Rise of Skywalker stuff, it'll blossom with the sequel characters and then the characters we've created in that universe, all merge together and be this big fantastic thing. But Resistance Consequences, I had Mike change that to a resistance leader that left the rebellion. It was just really cool because it takes place during Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, a tight gap of time. It's not really a gap. There is no gap. And it's just like, it was just really cool helping Mike figure out, like, because there's references to like the Tally's death, like towards the end, or there's references to like the Hostnian system blowing up towards the beginning. So you can see the timeline, and it was a really big learning experience to connect things, because at the time it was like the 5th SWE fiction story. There was nothing really to connect it to yet. But we had to connect it to things like, The Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and then like Resistance and other things like that. So it was really like a learning experience of putting these stories in and fitting them in a way that it's not just shoving things in there, but a way that naturally works. And so, yeah, that was a big learning experience for me. That's why I also defend things like that. Like, I know in this day and age, like the idea of like a cinematic universe for everything, people dread it, but I'm like, it really is like an art form to have like these two separate stories and figuring out how to interwove them. That's very much what we're doing. Yeah,
having everything take place in one connected universe, it's like there's a certain amount of talent there. Not everyone can pull it off, as it's been very clear by all the people that are trying to have their own MCU, and it's not working out that way. But yeah, no, that's really cool, and I love what Mike did with his giving everyone a Star Wars name. That's something, if I ever get to play in the Star Wars sandbox, I want to try to do that with at least a couple of my friends, of just sneak them in there in just a little bit, so if they see it, they're like, I think I know who that is. But before, I want to just quickly, we can go back to the creative stuff, and we can talk about Wayseekers and that type of content creation, but more on the personal connection. We've talked about movies, and we've talked about your impact as a kid. I think I know the answer to this, because he's the centerpiece of a lot of your stories. But if you could just say one character that's impacted you the most, and like ways that they have, who would that be? And I want to see if I'm right here.
I mean, I definitely say Ben Solo, Kylo Ren.
There we go. Knew it.
But also like Luke Skywalker. I mean, like a lot of those characters, Star Wars is great because you can see yourself in a lot of these characters, and helps you navigate life through these characters. I think with Ben Solo, it's really cool because he is a character that has done a lot of wrong. Nobody, or I shouldn't say nobody's denying that. I'm not denying that that Kylo Ren has done some.
There are some people. There are some people. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's why I changed. But yeah, I really like Ben Solo because it's just Star Wars has this message, in like with Darth Vader and Anakin, or any character really, Boba Fett, it's never too late to do the right thing. You may fall down a dark path, and it's exaggerated because it's Star Wars. I love that quote by Ryan Johnson, or not. It's not really a quote, but there's like a Twitter thread where it's like, I'm sorry, but I can't relate to the story of Ben Solo and you humanizing him because I didn't kill my father. And he's like, well, yeah, you also didn't blow up the Death Star, but you still connect with Luke Skywalker. And it's like, yep. It's like, we all have our past of, whether it's good or bad. And it's never too late to do the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, redemption is such a key part of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And that's why I know a lot of us on our show have been so excited that it seems that they're finally allowing redemption stories to be told, to where they just don't end with the redemption and then they're dead. Ben Solo. But like, we got that with Reva, and we were all so excited on the show when we did our Kenobi finale coverage, that they gave her the chance to survive and let her story continue on in other stories, which we are so excited about. But yeah, I had a feeling it was Kylo. I feel like you've said that before, but like I just wanted to make sure, because Ben Solo is such a popular character in our circle, and it's great because people say, "Oh, the sequel trilogy, no memorable characters." It's like, are you sure about that?
Right.
Because like people just say things to say things at this point. So I have a couple more questions, and then we can probably get to wrapping things up. But going to Wayseekers, and then what you're currently working on now with Tom and with Chelsea, how did you go about meeting them? Was Chelsea just someone that joined the Discord, or I know Tom and you, I think that was through Blood of Vader, but I could be wrong. But like, how did you three become like a unit and this power trio that you currently are in the Star Wars fandom world?
Right. So Tom was through Blood of Vader. I had posted on my, the story of Blood of Vader very shortly is that I love to make logos. People know that. And at the time I was making logos for what could be Disney Plus series. And I was like, a Kylo Ren series would be cool. Kylo Ren Blood of Vader. I think it's based off of like a Battlefront 2 line. And I kind of like internalized it and put it into this title, Kylo Ren Blood of Vader. And I made it. I'm like, hold on, that looks cool. Like, I don't want Disney Plus producing that. I want to make that. Right. And so I just like had the ideas of like what it could be, what you'd explore in a 5-episode series of Kylo Ren, Ben Solo. And so I had posted, because like I said before, I wasn't very confident in my writing skills at the time to do something like that, do justice to the character of Kylo Ren. And by the way, this was before Rise of Skywalker, so we didn't know anything that happened in that movie. But I posted on my story, I need a writer, basically. It was before the website as well, and Tom hit me up, and it was like he had done a fan film before, and it was like, all right, well, you're hired. At the time, I didn't really look too far into it. Obviously worked out very well. But yeah, he's very talented. So I had big time with Tom. With Chelsea, they joined the Discord around, I think, like six months after it had started. And they didn't know who I was. They were on like Pin Instagram, and they found it. They found the Discord through one of their friends or something. They weren't following me or anybody in the server. And they joined the server, found out who I was. They started coming to events. We started doing book club, All Star Wars book club with Mike in the server. Another big thing that was part of our community for a while was All Star Wars book club. And met a lot of great people there. But that's when Chelsea was, we had Chelsea in all the meetings. They were very insightful, and we became good friends. Mike and I became good friends with Chelsea. Don't tell anybody, but Chelsea got invited to the secret Instagram Discord server, even though they don't have an Instagram account or a Star Wars Instagram account. No, I'm just kidding. They technically do. It's like a pin Instagram account. But yeah. Chelsea very much became one of my best friends. And I started the podcast with Tom originally. We did season 1 together. It was a little shaky because we both ended up having to move during season 1. And it was like, damn. And we were recording live too. So if we took a week off, it wasn't like we could record earlier or something like that. So it was not a weekly podcast. And we did like 9 episodes together. And we thought it was really good, but we had Chelsea on a few episodes of season 1, and we were like, the conversation's always great when Chelsea's on, so why don't we just have Chelsea on? It's great too because like I was very close to Tom, very close to Chelsea, and now it's like we're all close together. And it's been amazing.
That's so nice.
Yeah, the podcast has been doing fantastic. And they're doing a spin-off of Wayseekers. Chelsea and I are, because I'm going to be visiting Chelsea in a week. I'm meeting Chelsea in person, and staying with them for a week. So we're doing a spin-off of Wayseekers. It's called Everything But Star Wars, and it'll come out.
So you're going to be recording that in person?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that part. That's awesome.
Yeah. The first few episodes will be in person, and hopefully some more later on. But yeah, it'll be everything but Star Wars. So we talk about Star Wars a lot. So you'll get a lot of Marvel stuff. But we also both don't really watch anything but Star Wars and Marvel. So we're trying to branch out, and we have a whole list of season 1. We're watching things like Lord of the Rings for the first time. Me and Chelsea are both on a Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul kick. But yeah, that's going to be something fun we're doing September 19th, every other Monday. It's going to be everything but Star Wars. I'm sure we're going to have Andrew on the podcast to talk about something that he likes that's not Star Wars.
I'll try. I'll try. I've been trying to get you on my show for months, so I'll eventually get on yours.
Yes.
What am I gonna talk about? That's gonna be a good question. One last creative question before I go into my rapid fire end thing that I have planned here.
Sure.
So tell me what it's like, because you have done, I believe, twice now, the SWE virtual celebration. Tell me what it's like running a virtual convention, because I can only imagine, because I was part of the second one. I can only imagine what it's like putting together a whole weekend of panels and everything. And what is that like?
Man, it's torture in the best way possible. Like, I don't know what it is, but I love big scale projects like that. Things like I really don't have the power or money to be doing. But still,
you were like, I'm going to do 2 in 1 year. You're just doubling down on it.
Yeah. Because obviously SWE became a community, especially when the Discord came out, then it became a really big community. Celebration had been canceled twice, the in-person event. So it was like, what can we do? Well, we have this whole Discord server. We have so many creators that are either part of SWE or I'm very close friends with. And we brought the Star Wars fandom together twice in my Discord server to celebrate Star Wars. The first one was a 3-day weekend. The second was a 4-day weekend. But it was hectic. It's a lot, because there's a lot of people, a lot of panels, lots of no sleeping. At the same time, you're still trying to, because I still run SWE fiction and all the SWE stuff, so I'm still trying to plan my panels and such, and how I'm gonna announce everything, because we don't show up to these events. SWE fiction never shows up without at least 10 project announcements. But we showed up with a bunch of content, and then getting creators in. What type of panel should we do? It's weird, because we're not at the point where we're big enough to have real Star Wars creators in. I mean, we have some Christina Ariel, Christopher Sean. They're in my Discord server. Actually, Christina Ariel did show up to the second virtual celebration. I think
Connor told me Christina was at one of the High Republic panels, or she was in the VC during it.
Yeah, and then she
I missed that part.
Yeah, she came and visited in the VC in between panels or something. Yeah, it was just a really fun way to get the fandom together to talk about other fandom projects, because we had other fan films going on. One of my friends, Kiefer, he does this Mandalorian trilogy, and they're doing their second one, Shadow of the Mandalorian, and they're actually using the same technology as the Mandalorian, the first fan film. It's a little different. It's a wall instead of a whole volume, but it's very much the same principle, very much the same technology that was made by the team at ILM, where it's the background moves with the camera, all that sort of stuff. It looks fantastic. But we got to talk about stuff like that, and just overall celebrating Star Wars with look backs at the sequel trilogy, because it was the sequel trilogy anniversary. It was a lot of fun, lots of creators, but yeah, it's very much hectic. It can get stressful. A lot of because I hate to. My biggest thing is I hate burdening people or being like an inconvenience, but like during that it's like, okay, I'm sorry to push you, but I really need this panel to be done. I need this slideshow to be done before this date so we can get everybody on board with it. So yeah, it was very hard to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I was on the Kenobi one with Mike and Star Wars Dude, kind of like a prelude for the Republic. I was like, all right, if this goes well, I'm gonna go ahead and announce the show. And then I thought it went really well, so I'm like, okay, let me announce that show. But then there was a lot of great ones there, and it's like there was such a different variety of like panels. Because I remember there was the LGBTQ one, and then there was a mental health one, I think, and they really got me emotionally. And I was like, man, like this community is coming together and making stuff like this. It was just such a special time. But I was like, what is the perspective from the guy actually putting it all together? And it's like, ugh. Okay, I got one more fun question for you. Something that is a not well-kept secret in the SWE Discord is the fact that you like to enjoy a little bit of something. So when you watch Star Wars, do you prefer watching it sober, or do you like being in another realm when you're watching your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird because it's like I have like a tolerance to it now, so you don't really smoke to get high. It's just like a different feeling now. But I think like, yeah, I think it's better when I'd say it's better when smoking it, not smoking before and watching it, but smoking while you're watching it. Amazing.
All right.
Yeah.
I had to ask. I had to get the opinion.
Yeah, being a stoner Star Wars fan is the best type of Star Wars fan you could be. It's the best type of stoner you can be.
You heard it first. But the thing I want to wrap things up with is I have a couple questions that are all going to kind of connect with each other. So in this hypothetical scenario, this is based on an article I wanted to do for SWE and could never figure out the right way to do it. So I'm just deciding to make it a segment on this show. So you're trapped in this scenario on a desert island. You only could bring one Star Wars movie, TV show, book / comic, or game, we'll call it, and then one personal item that's close to you. Not necessarily your favorites, but like the one your comfort thing, the one that you could always go back to when if you're having a bad day, you can turn this on and everything's great. So, do you have any answers? So let's just start with movie.
Movie, I have to go with Solo. It's the least depressing one.
It's like one of the most like rewatchable for me.
Yeah, it's I think it's my second or third. I can't remember. I just did a ranking on Way Seekers. Rankings don't really matter to me, but I still did it anyway.
My ranking changes every 2 weeks. It's fine.
Yeah.
How about show?
Show, it would have to be Star Wars Rebels, my beloved.
There's a Sabine Funko over here somewhere, but I don't know where it ran off to.
Oh man.
And then we can merge books and comics together. I mean, it could be canon, legends, whatever you want to do.
Books, I'm gonna have to go with. It's a tie between Princess of Alderaan and Rebel Rising, but I'm gonna say Princess of Alderaan. Sorry, Emily, if you're watching.
She's crying somewhere.
And then comic would be Rise of Kylo Ren. Love that comic.
I thought you almost said Redeemed and the Redeemable for a second. I'm like, no, you can't pick your own shit. You just can't do that. No. How about game?
I don't really play the games, but I've played Jedi Fallen Order.
All right, we'll go with that.
I played all the new ones, so all Jedi. All right,
Fallen and Order, then if you could bring one Star Wars themed item that you have that has some type of personal meaning, what would that be?
Man, I got a lot of shit. I'd probably bring my 2005 Master Replicas Anakin Skywalker Saber.
Oh, shit.
Because it was my dad's, and I really like that saber. And I like Anakin's version of the saber because there's always a debate which saber is it. They really only differentiate because they all look different. All the sabers look different. And Revenge of the Sith Anakin is the most different because it's chromed, it's shiny, it has gold in it. So probably that. It's beat the fuck up.
I don't even try to debate when people are like, oh, don't call it Rey's saber. It's like I just call it the Skywalker blade or the hero's blade, or I just try to avoid that at all costs, because if you call it the wrong thing, any certain section is going to be at your head. So, but thank you so much for being my first guest here on Galactic Senate Sit-Downs and dealing with me while I do my first ever interview type of thing. Because this was an experience. Thank you so much. I'm sure future episodes won't be as rocky as this, but I am so thankful for Austin for coming on here and being my first guest and helping me out here, because I've been wanting him on this podcasting network since we started, and I'm sure I will force him tooth and nail to be on the main Clone Wars show at some point in the future. It almost happened once, and then day of I had to get a substitute, but it's okay. But thank you so much for joining us. You obviously have Way Seekers coming. You have everything but Star Wars in the pipeline. But where can the good people find you if they aren't already following you already?
Find me on Instagram, StarWars.editor, Twitter, SWAustin0, and TikTok, SWAustin. Oh, and then YouTube, Austin SWE.
It's like a different variation of everything. If that chubby kid on TikTok, like I said at the beginning,
just Google that.
Google that and you'll find him. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at Starlight Andrew. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at For the Repub Pod, and on Instagram at For the Republic Pod. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel For the Republic Podcast. That's where the video version of this is going to be on there. We're putting out our backlog of content right now, and we're eventually going to be doing video versions of our episodes. Galactic Senate Sit-Downs, I'm going to want to do video for all of them, so this was a nice testing grounds for that. And I think we're going to be recording a new episode of the main show later this week at some point, and that'll be out soon. So thank you for joining us for the first episode of this. I have a couple guests coming for September and October that I cannot wait to announce soon. And as always, may the Force be with you. Always.